Hi everybody, welcome back to Chemistry 161. Let me fade the music out here. This week's music is Paradise Killer, a detective game in a place that is anywhere but paradise, as I found out when I finished it. What are we doing today? So, for our Monday lectures, what I generally do is I introduce a lab topic and we talk about a worksheet activity that you will be assigned to do. And then afterward, we go over any questions that you might have in the class. We can do practice problems, etc. I realize that it's week 1 and we've barely gotten to math, like, at all. So there's probably not that many questions. We haven't covered that much content yet. And that's fine for the first lab Q&A. So tonight's discussion probably won't take that long. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. But what I do want to do is for people who have not taken a class with me before, I want to show, and we'll go here to do that. I want to show you how to access, oops, that's a little big, isn't it? How to access the lab content. We'll just, I gotta resize this window here, hold on. That's good. Yeah, there aren't any labs due yet. In fact, it won't be due until next week, so there we go, that's pretty good. I don't know how much of the screen is actually going to be needed, so I don't want to trim it down too much, but there we go. Okay. So here's the gist of what you're going to need to do, and you will need to follow these directions pretty specifically, because if you deviate from them, you run the risk of me not being able to read your lab assignment, okay? And you'll understand what I mean by that when I get there. So I have this document right here that more or less tells you everything I'm going to tell you, but some people prefer a video version of it, and that's fine. So I'm going to show you that version. For every lab that we do in this class, there's going to be 2 pieces of documentation that are essential. One of them is going to be the lab documentation itself, which when you click on it, will lead you to the PDF, which has all of the information and all the questions and stuff like that. And so you can scroll through that, and I do want you to read it because it is important that you know how to do whatever it is that the lab is talking about. This week it's sig figs and glassware, and the significance of what the numbers written on the glassware mean and things like that. Okay, this would be a really important activity to do if you were in a lab. You're not in a lab because of people not able to wear their masks all the time or whatever. And instead, we have to simulate that. So I'm going to give you the data as if you were working with the glassware, and you can see how that works out. So more on this in a little bit. If I go back, I will hear the cat cry. Meow. Oh no, I've encouraged her. Maya has something she wants to say. Say hi, Maya. Yes. Yes, everybody's happy to hear you. Are you good? Yeah, you let them know. She's starting to love the headset now. They say hi, Maya. That's great. You can stop meowing at me now. No, I'm not gonna hold you. I was just holding you. Oh my goodness. Maya is the most needy cat. She needs to be held all the time. The other thing about the lab that you're gonna need is this thing right here. This should open this window. I'm going to click up here to just put it in its own window so that you can see it on the screen. And will lead to a worksheet that looks like this. This is the worksheet that you're going to fill out, and I can see that other people are already accessing it, so that's good. That means it's available. What you are going to do on these worksheets... Oh, interesting. This version of the worksheet doesn't have how many points each part is added to it. Whatever, it'll be fine. Okay. Normally, I would write something over here like 1 point or whatever it's worth, so I would know for grading. Maybe I just didn't do it for the first worksheet because I didn't think to do that. That's okay. I have a key somewhere. I don't know if I need to update this, but this worksheet should be fine. Because the question wasn't edited, just the information. So I did update the documentation. We'll talk about that a little bit when I talk about the lab specifically. But for now, this is what you need to do. On every lab worksheet that you download, you'll see that there are regions on it that are in light blue. Those are the regions that you're going to type an answer into. Okay? So, for instance, if I wanted to type the answer, this answer is orange. I don't know. I would hit enter, and there you go. And so there you go. So that would be the answer you'd submit for that. And then over here, I could do candy-coated popsicle sticks. I don't know. You just type whatever answers you want into these boxes. Try not to scroll outside of the answer box. Some things that you can do, and I tried to do this formatting. I think this is one of the first worksheets I did, so the formatting might be weird. If you type an answer that's so long that it goes all the way... I need to pick a wider letter. There we go. It goes all the way off of this. It should carriage return, which means that it wraps around and goes like this. If it doesn't, the way to fix that is this option right here, text wrapping. So this is the default. It will just scroll off the side forever. That's not really readable. So if you see one that does that, turn on text wrap, and it will fix that. The other thing you can do is if you don't like it so that the words center to the bottom, you can change this vertical alignment so it's like that. I honestly don't care. I think I set these to all have up vertical alignment before, but for whatever reason, this first worksheet, I guess I didn't think to do it. So, let's see here. Can I just quickly do that really quickly? If you've already downloaded a worksheet, don't worry about it. I'm just quickly changing the alignment on all of these answer boxes. So we'll just do that. Boop, boop, boop. And again, you don't have to do that. You don't have to re-download this file. Okay, so that's fixed now. Okay, down at the bottom, you saw that I was tabbing through different things. You'll see that there are a bunch of tabs that are labeled. These line up with parts of the documentation. So when the documentation asks you to do that question, you just click the correct tab and do whatever. So make sure that you are filling in all of the blue spaces with answers of some sort. There are some places where I ask you, do a thing in this space. And then I leave it open for your interpretation on how to do that. So here I have drawn a giant blue box and then have a space for a graph. So what you're going to do is you're going to make some sort of table and then turn that table into a graph so that it goes in this space. If you put it somewhere else, like if you put it over, say, here, I might not see it because I'm only going to be looking in the spots where there's blue stuff, okay? So be mindful of that. Make sure you put everything in the regions that I ask you to, or I may overlook it because when I grade these, I have to grade them quickly. Finally, in this far left column here that's gray, I've set up formulas. So like if I wanted to give you 1 point for this problem, it should sum it up and put it right there. If I wanted to give you that many points, there you go. Now you've got an A in class because there's no way you could lose that many points, right? So these cells are all formulas that link to give you your score. If you break these formulas by typing in these spaces, then my page breaks and I can't grade your report, okay? Don't write in the left column. You write anywhere else, but don't do anything in the left column. If you do on accident, hit undo, and if you can't undo it, download a new copy of the page. All right. If you are at this page, you've probably noticed, hey, I can't enter anything in here. What's the deal? And the answer is, please do not request that I share it with you. what you're going to do instead is you're going to do this. You're going to hit make a copy. Make a copy will turn a copy of that worksheet into a file that you can manipulate. Do not share it with the same people because it's not shared with anybody. And do not hit copy comments because it doesn't do anything. Just type in whatever name you want for this and hit OK. And so I'm going to just call this demo copy 161. And it's going to open a new window. And now you have a new version, and you should be able to enter anything you want to in this sheet. Okay? This sheet is now yours. You may type all the answers you want into it. You're all set. Now let's suppose that you have finished the assignment. You've input all of the information that you want, and you now want to submit it. What do you do? The first thing that you need to do is you need to go File, Download, Microsoft Excel. Okay? I can't accept any other format. I can't input or open other formats. This is the only one that works. Furthermore, you must do all of your work in Google Sheets. Do not download the file, work on it in your own spreadsheet program, and then send it to me. It won't work. If you do that, you get a 0, okay? If I open your file and there's an error, I send the file back to you and I give you a 0, and I say, hey, I can't grade this, send it to me within 24 hours. And if you don't, you just get a 0. And that starts this awful sort of email tag with the instructor. Like, oh, I don't know why it's working. Why isn't it working? Because you didn't follow the directions. I have a really archaic setup on my computer at home, and this is unfortunately what I have to work with. The other alternative is you do it by hand and you take pictures of it. That's not something that either of us want. So, make sure you are doing all your work in a Google Sheet. Go File, Download, Microsoft Excel, XLSX. Save that file to somewhere. So I'm going to save the file. There's going to be a pop-up on my screen. You probably can't see that, so I'll just save it to the desktop. There we go. I have downloaded the copy of the file. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Canvas, and in the Assignments tab, you can't see the assignment. Oh, you can see the assignments. Okay. Cool. So we're going to go to Laboratory Worksheet number 1. I don't know why it's worth 23. I probably did something last quarter. Okay. And it says this. Please upload your .xlsx file for lab worksheet number 1 here. All right. And you can only upload XLSX files. You're going to submit online. You can submit as many versions as you want. When does it due? So this is a Monday lab class, so that means that the labs will be due. Oh shit, I made a mistake on the previous class. Should be Tuesday. So these are due Tuesday, and they're available until Wednesday. I will have to go fix that. Okay. So I'm gonna hit save. This is just something that I'm doing for me. Wait, is that tomorrow? That shouldn't be tomorrow. No, it's due next week. Sorry. You scared me. I was like, oh crap, no, it's not due tomorrow. You get a week to do it. Because a day is not enough time. So now let me go through what it looks like when you are submitting an assignment. So I push this button, and now I'm a student. And so now I can go to the Modules tab. And it's going to tell me, oh, I can't do any of these things. Sorry, not a Modules tab. I want Assignments. And so you would go to this right here, Laboratory Worksheet number 1. And you'll see this assignment now. Available until and due. So the due date is the soft deadline in the syllabus. That is the date that I want you to turn it in by. However, if you can't get it due by that day, the assignment is open until the next day. You get one additional day past the deadline. I have found that if I put a deadline on Canvas, students miss it. If I put 2 deadlines on Canvas and then send you a reminder that, like, hey, it's last call, almost everybody makes the deadline. And I don't know what phenomenon that is for people, but people miss deadlines. So I have two deadlines. There's the soft deadline, which is get it done by now if you can, and then the hard deadline, which is get it done by now or you don't get credit. Okay. When you click on it, a box will pop up that says upload. You then click on the button. We're going to upload that file. I believe I called it demo. Oh, I have the 131 one here. I'm going to upload it. Boop. It's been uploaded. You can then hit submit, and it will get put in the queue. If at any point before the deadline occurs, you go, oh, I uploaded the wrong file, or oh, I did not include this picture, or oh, I changed my answers, or whatever. You can click on this trash can and go, and now it's gone. And you can upload another one, and it'll count attempts, but I don't give a shit about attempts. Don't worry about it. Okay. So upload all the files over and over that you need to until you get it right. When you are done, you can then come back to this screen and it will say graded, and then you can download your file. I won't put comments on it. If you type comments on here, I don't know if I will see them because they aren't put in your file. I'm going to read your file and I'm going to go over it with a column and grade it. Okay. It takes me roughly a week to grade these because I have a lot of them. I have other classes too. Not as many students as last quarter, thankfully. But I do have other tasks that I'm doing at the same time, so I will try and get the turnaround on stuff to be about a week. Okay, so I'm going to leave student view here. All right, that is everything I can think of about the how-to on lab stuff for this class. And you've already seen this before if you've taken my 140. Do I want you to name it a specific thing? I have learned that Canvas automatically appends a file name to it, and if I don't have a double section, which I don't this quarter, I don't have to worry about it. So, you don't need to put any specific name because Canvas will do that for you. I know that my documentation says please name it this way, and that is because my documentation was written for classes that are double sections. But it was also written before I knew what Canvas would do, because I had to come up with what I was doing spring last year. Can you believe it's almost been a year of this shit? I can't. Feels like it's been 20 years. So I realized that there will be some directions that will tell you, please do this, and if you forget to do that, there's nothing wrong. It'll be okay for that specific direction. Yeah. Yeah, it's so fucking frustrating. I'm so sick of this. I need to get out of this apartment and, like, go hug people. My cats right now, well, my cats are always just like this. They want me to hug them all the time. And it's like, I want to hug all the time, too. But we're getting there. The vaccine is starting to roll out, so that's good. I know Everett's not doing classes in person in the spring. I really fingers crossed. Like, please let us go back in the fall. And then you can all come by my office and be like, hey, you're the mysterious guy whose voice came through my computer. Yeah, your videos were pretty shitty. And I'll be like, yep, I know. I had no idea what I was doing, and no one else did either. And then we can laugh and go to Taco Book. It'll be great. Let's talk about the lab itself. So I need to capture another window here. So that's what this one's for. It didn't show up. Oh, I didn't have the PDF open. Hold on. Yeah, did you like my lab number 1? I had to go and make that like 2 days before I had to put it up for you guys. And then I found I was the only person available on campus because, of course, it's a fucking pandemic. So I made that entire 140 video with no help from anybody and no documentation at all. And I spent maybe 2 hours recording on the tiniest screen that you can imagine. What am I doing with this window? Hold on. I don't want Photoshop. I want... Oh, I have to do this again. That's why it can't find it. There we go. That's what I want. Yeah. So what I was recording from was a window that looked like this. And so I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this video quality looks really good, despite the images being 6 centimeters from the camera. And then when I blew it up in the video and I put with all the solutions, I didn't realize that, like, holy crap, the video is very blurred because it doesn't autofocus down that far. I had to hit a button. There's a button for, like, I don't know what it's called, like still life mode or whatever, and it just has a different, like, algorithm that it focuses with, and I had no idea that was a thing. So those close-ups of the test tubes would have been so much better if I had known that, and if somebody could have told me, because, I should not be doing all this work by myself. So that project turned out really good, all things considered. Samita's recording. Samita's had somebody else there, but she told me after she did all her recordings, like, I didn't know what to say. I was really embarrassed. Like, it felt really awkward. There was no one to talk to. And I was like, yeah, that's why I did my video without saying anything. And so we both laughed at that. But she really liked what I did to her video. It was a lot longer, by the way. I think I made it from 7 minutes was mine. Hers was like 42. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I was using OBS, and I was also using DaVinci Resolve to make the video. Why is that behind it? Oh, because I gotta do this. And also because it's small. I was using DaVinci Resolve to make a video, which is how I added the music and all the sound effects. Yeah, Samita gives you every possible detail she can, and she's amazing about that. Like, she gives you so much information. However, I feel like after about minute 20, you start to tune out. So when I say that, I mean when you're not in person. When you're in her lecture, like, yeah, you would listen to her for an hour. That's fine. But, like, on a video, 20 minutes is kind of all you can take before you just start to do other shit in your computer. So I tried to make my videos short so that if you do pause them, it would either be like at a midpoint and not like 20 times. So, and I realized Samita probably doesn't watch that much YouTube. So she doesn't know about, like, YouTube algorithms and what's the term for it? Heuretics and stuff like that. Like YouTube tells me how much people watch and, like, for how big of a chunk. And I know other YouTubers, and it's 20 minutes is about as long as you can go. This is the lab. Let's talk about the lab a little bit. So I've split the lab into roughly 2 parts. Part A is a glassware assessment, where you're going to look at glassware in different usages and also different standards. So, like, some glassware has markings on it that are far apart, like a beaker. Others have marks where the lines on the glass represent like 0.1 milliliters. They're very, very fine. That's going to be particularly important depending on your application, and this document, which I realize is stupidly long, talks all about that. One thing I do want to comment on, this part right here, I posted this in the Discord, and I also posted an announcement. I changed this because there was something in here that I think I copied this from another faculty member, and I was like, no, that's not right. And then changed it, but didn't upload the correct file this quarter or something. You had the old version, and a student caught it and emailed me, and I was like, this is kind of weird. And I went back and looked at it, and I was like, yeah, you're right, that is kind of weird. That's the old version. So specifically on what page is this? This is page 2. The part that tells you about how a tool measures and how off you can be, because I realize there's a question about this. I have edited it, so that was the only part I had to change. So everything else should be the same, and it should be good. There's a discussion on what each piece of glassware is. This goes into far more detail than you would probably ever need, but this is just a standard document that we all use for this lab, and I have only modified it slightly. So I just put it all in there. If you skim over it, that's okay because you're going to be referring back to it anyway. I would just read it once, and then once you get to the pre-experiment questions, go back and reference it. Like, you don't have to memorize this. This is a learning document. It is meant to be referenced and not memorized, okay? Although learning this stuff as you go is an important skill. The next thing you're going to notice is that I have a section that is labeled pre-experiment questions, part A. So when we go back over to, I got to do this, I'm just going to have to keep trading these places for these two. So where is it? There it is. So when I go back to here, you'll see that the tab down here, Part A, Pre-Experiment Questions, asks you to answer the same questions that are in the documentation. So I'm going to try and scroll this up so you can kind of see number 1 there. There we go. And so now you would type in whatever answer you want for here. So have the documentation open as you go, and then type in your answers, and so on and so forth, okay? If you have a giant box like this, I want you to keep your answer within the constraint of the box. So if you type in 4 paragraphs, it's not going to fit in the box and your answer is too long, okay? So don't do that. If your answer ends up being like a sentence, that is about, I don't know, for example, that much. If that is all you type, that's fine, okay? I am just making a big box so that I can literally do this to it. Boop, boop, boop. And I can just paste that over and over and over so that I can make a template that actually looks professional, okay? I just made a big box that was one size fits all. Your answer does not need to fill that box. If I am expecting a smaller sort of answer from you, I have made the boxes slightly smaller. So, like, for instance, in these boxes, you need to type a number. So if the number you wanted to type was this, there you go. The boxes that I have set for these cells are not numerical commands. These are just text. So what that means is that anything that you type gets preserved, okay? Now you can change that so that you can use it for formulas if you want to. And the way to do that is to go up here and hit Format, go to Number, and then tell it you want these to be numbers. There is a catch to this, though. Watch what happens to all my numbers. Notice how I had tons of zeros here before, and now there's only 2. If I just type in 18, it's automatically going to do that to it. Because setting it to number... Where is it? There we go. Puts a certain number of sig figs associated with that. And I believe that that's 2. Now, maybe you want more than 2, or maybe you want fewer than 2. That's where these buttons come in. So this decreases decimal places, and this increases decimal places. Okay? So set it to the number of decimal places you want for a given cell. And then if it gives you too many or too few, do this to it until you get the right number. If you type in a number, it will try and round it like that. And it will retain that number there when you set it to the right number of sig figs. Okay? So that's how you do that. I'm going to set this all back to plain text. There you go. Now, why would you want to make this a number? Because then you can do stuff like this. So if this is 19.5 and this is 14.5, I could then say, I want this number minus this number. So if you know how to do Excel commands, you can do stuff like that. I have set this to plain text because a lot of students were like, I don't know how to format. And I didn't even realize that was an issue. So now I do that discussion when I teach these classes. Is like, this is how you move numbers on the worksheet. And hopefully when people see the video, they will know that, or they already know how to do that. So now that you know that, you can take the plain text and change it back to number if you prefer, so that you can do formulas. It's totally up to you. All I care about is that at the end of the day, when you submit this, the numbers that you want have the correct number of sig figs, so that when I grade it, I can just match what I have on the key to what you have. Okay. I do allow for a little bit of rounding. So if you give me 39.4 and the answer is 39.5, I take it. That's fine. If your answer is 39.42 and the answer was 39.5, I do ding you for sig figs because that would be too many sig figs on your answer based on the numbers that are shown. Okay. These numbers in italics come from the documentation. So if I go like this again, that's the wrong thing. There we go. If I go like that and scroll down to, these are just pre-lab questions. If I scroll down to this table, these numbers that I have in this like comic book font, which I just did because it looked like handwriting, those are already input into the documentation for you. Okay, so you do not need to edit them, and in fact, you shouldn't. If you do, then you need to put them back, and also I won't grade them. So don't touch anything in the tables that isn't in blue. Part A requires you to look at these numbers and then do calculations and figure out percent error for all of these things. You're going to work with a beaker, you're going to work with a graduated cylinder, a pipette, and a burette. The documentation tells you about what those pieces of glassware are typically used for, and then it tells you about how accurate they are. You should be able to tell how accurate they are based on the numbers that I have written. These are typical numbers for these pieces of glassware. And then when you get to the analysis section, it's going to ask you, tell me which glassware is the most accurate and tell me which is the most precise. You should know what accuracy and precision are because we talked about it in lecture. In some cases, I have text formatting that breaks. This is going to be a thing that happens in this quarter. So like right here, that OC is supposed to be degrees. I guess I could just write degree. I could just do that. But the point is that if I am typing something out like a formula, like let's see, H2C2O4. Excel's not a word, or I'm sorry, Google Sheets is not a word processor, so I cannot do formulas. So like if I do H2O or CO2 or whatever, I can't do subscripts. For any application of a formula in these, just type it out like that. Do the best that you can. Later on, you're going to type things like PO4 3 minus, or not 30, but there you go. That could be phosphate. That's good enough. Like, there is very little that we can do with regards to chemical formulas in Excel because it just doesn't let you do it. You don't need to go somewhere and paste shit in. Just approximate it. If you aren't sure you are conveying the idea well, type a little note in the blue box next to your answer, and it should be fine. Okay. That's part A. Part A is really just calculations and doing stuff. Part B is going to require you to use density information to determine the percentage of sugar in soda pop or Coke or whatever it is you call it. I don't know what I'm supposed to call it because I grew up in California and now I live up here. I don't call it pop. That's silly. I don't know why I said that. You're going to generate a graph like this. We'll get to that in a second. But what I am going to do to generate this graph is we're going to figure out a percentage of sugar sample and correlate that with its density. Okay? So you're going to have to figure out the density of these solutions to the correct number of sig figs based on the data that I showed you. Density is very straightforward. It's mass divided by volume. So you can figure out the mass of the solution based on the difference of weighing that I showed here. So I weighed a beaker before and then after I put in the solution that was indicated, the solution here. I tell you the volume that I use because I use a pipette of this volume. You can calculate the density and get an average. You're going to do that for a 0%, a 5%, a 10%, and a 15% sugar solution. And then I'm going to give you our unknowns, which are actually known. They're just, we don't know what their percent sugar is. We got Pepsi and Diet Coke. Now, if your intuition is telling you, well, wait a second, isn't the percent sugar of one of those, Then yes, keep that in mind. But do the calculations anyway to see if that matches with what you're thinking, and it should. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation on, let's see here. We'll go to part B. You're going to fill out this information, just like before, and then you're going to fill out the Pepsi and the Diet Coke. And then what it's going to ask you to do is, in the space below, use your data to construct a graph. You may not need to use all the highlighted region to do this. That's fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a graph in Google Sheets. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label my columns. I want to plot a density versus percent sugar. What that means is that percent sugar will be my x-axis, and then density will be the y-axis. Okay, because the percent sugar is the independent variable, and the density is the variable. It depends on the amount of sugar that's in there, right? These percent sugar values are written on the bottles of the solutions that you'll use. Okay, so I'm going to write those in here: 0, 5, 10, 15. Now, something that you don't want to do is you don't want to do this. These are not values. You cannot plot Pepsi and Diet Coke on your graph. They're unknown, right? You don't know what their percent sugars are. So what I'm actually going to do is omit them. They're not going to show up on my graph at all. And then what I'm going to do is calculate the density, which you've already done up here in these parts. So I'm going to just make up some densities. So we'll say 1.00. Oh, you know what? I want to make these. These are all just auto. So I'm going to do this for them. 1.105, 1.218. That's fine. Whatever. 0.392. It doesn't matter. I'm just typing in numbers here. Okay. Once you have your data, here's how you make a graph. So you're going to go like this. You're going to highlight the data. You're going to go insert chart. In the sciences, you always want to put a scatter plot. So over here where it says chart type, should default to scatter. That's what you want. It already looks pretty good. It's going to ask you what you want for the x-axis, and then this is the y-axis where it says series. It has already imported the labels because it knows that, oh, the thing above the first entry is probably the label. So it puts those there. But this is not all that you need on your chart. So the next thing to do is you want to go to Customize. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to customize the series. And we're going to go down here to where it says Trend Line and click that. Boop. And what that's going to do is it's going to put a line through my data that represents the best fit line equation of what I just plotted. Okay? Once I've hit the trend line, all of this other information appears. Excuse me. I also need to include on my trend line, I need the R-squared value. And then I need, for label, you want to push use equation. There you go. So this right here is the equation of that line. So what it says is, take the percentage of sugar, multiply it by 0.0219, and then add 0.998 to it. That will give you the density. Okay? So you need this information on the graph. Oops, I can't actually move it by doing that. I'm sure that you can move it somehow, but it's not super important that you do. Okay. The other thing that I prefer that you do, and this is sort of like personal preference, but you don't have to do this. You'll notice that on our graph, there's a lot of empty space at the bottom. There's no reason this axis needs to go to 0. So since that's the vertical axis, we're going to change the range somehow. And I forget where I do this. It might be under grid lines. Maybe it's not. I know you can get to it by just clicking on it. I just don't know what. Oh, there it is. Minimum and maximum. Okay. So I don't want it to start at 0, so I want it to start at, I don't know, let's do 0.8. And then what's the maximum? It can just auto-scale it. That's fine. Now our graph takes up the entire plot. and our data is further apart. The higher the resolution that you get, the better your graph is going to be in order to calculating stuff. Also, since part of your lab is taking this density information and using it on this graph somehow, if your graph looks like this, and the minimum is 0 and everything is just crammed towards the top, it gets harder to delineate this. So set this number to some number that spreads everything out more so that you can see a bigger spread of your data. So that when you apply the Pepsi and the Diet Coke to it to try and figure out what the percent sugar is, it'll be easier to do. You're going to do this visually, which is why we want to do that stuff. And then you're going to do it algebraically, which is use the formula. Okay. Your formula is going to be different than my formula because I just entered random data. Note that if you have made a typo, you can edit the data, and your equation will be edited accordingly. I'm just going to move a data point like totally far off just to show you that, hey, everything is updating on the fly. So don't feel like, oh shit, I made a mistake. I got to clear everything and start over. Okay. If you do erase everything, it'll just say no data. So yeah, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that because I'm still working in the class template. But that's how you make a graph for anything in Excel and or Google Sheets, okay? If you aren't sure where to find something, you can always type it in the help feature right here, so you could just search. The other thing that you can do is you could just try shit. You can't break it. You can always Control-Z to undo. And if you're really, really worried, save a copy of it and then play around on a copy. Okay. Make sure your graph is in this region. Make sure it has a title, that your axes have labels. Did this text... Oh, interesting. Boop. There we go. Make sure your axes have labels. Make sure that anything that requires units, it actually shows that. So I just wrote density. You actually want to write density and then whatever the units are. So it shows up on your graph. Okay. I think that's all I really have for the lab. If you have any questions about it, let me know. That's the point of today. I'm just sort of trying to guide you through what you need to do. And hopefully, while you were doing this, you weren't just sitting there and listening, but actually just playing around with it and doing stuff on your own, or even starting the assignment. Let me know if you have any questions. What I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the break time screen. So that's this. I need my timer. I am going to let the timer run for 10 minutes. Let Paradise Killer play some more music because the music is fantastic and everybody should... You don't have to play the game if you don't like it, but the music is unbelievably good. During this 10-minute break, ask me any questions that you might have about the lab stuff that we just went over. We can review that if you need to. If you have questions about the course content, anything that you want to ask, consider this just like office hour. Put those questions in the chat. If it's short, I will just type a response to it and try and explain it like in words. Or if it's a question that could just be answered that way. If you... Oops, that's the video I'm using. I mean, I don't care if you see that the game itself. Where is my... Oh, it's underneath everything. Hold on. Is that it? That's my Photoshop, right? Oh, I didn't actually open a thing. There we go. So I have this open. I can just go over whatever you want me to. Like, we can do. I can answer any questions you want to. Just let me know. So, like, that's a good question to ask me. Like, if you have a specific question about the sig figs, let me know. Like, I'm happy to answer it. But I am going to give you 10 minutes to think about those questions and then put them in the chat. So we will start the timer. We will start the music. And we will be back in just a moment. Oh, that's the second time I gotten off by 0.01 today. Let me turn the music down. Are there in-class worksheets? Unfortunately, not for this class. I don't have time to make them, is the problem. I give you the slides, and then you could write down whatever you want to from the slides, as you see fit, or you could write down your own notes. But what I provide you on Canvas is what you get right now. Which admittedly is quite a bit. Is this the window I want? Yeah. So like everything in here is all available, and so all these slides should be available to. These are all links to the textbook, but these are the slides right here for chapter 1. So you should have these available. As far as practice problems are concerned, those are in the online text. Once these load, you'll see the slides here. So any exercises that you are asked, or you're not really asked to do anything, any exercises that you want to do. So let's say, for example, you wanted to go to do practice on sig figs and stuff. And so you would click on this. This is the text. And then scroll to the bottom, and there are exercises in the text as you go. So like this would be an example problem. But then more specifically, interesting. I didn't actually link to that. Okay. I'm going to add that because I don't think students are aware that there is. If you go to the table of contents and you go to this, there's a page marked exercises for the chapter. These are all the problems that I want you to do for practice. Okay. This is probably more what you're looking for. I didn't realize that wasn't linked in there. I will fix that tonight. So these are all, there's hundreds of problems. Like there's so many to do practice on. I don't provide an answer key for these, but the text does. Anything that's even has a link to its answer. So let me find a problem. There it goes. So if I click on this, here's the answer key for all the even problems. Okay, and that's for chapter 1. And that's right here in the index, or I guess this is actually a table of contents. So it's at the bottom for exercises. I'll go put a link to just all the exercises for each chapter, because that doesn't take me any time to do it all. And generally speaking, I don't go through the exercises and say, which one of these do I want you to do? Because the answer is always all of them. I want you to do as many exercises as you can until you feel comfortable with the problem set. And if that takes 2 problems, then great, go on to the next topic. If that takes 20 problems, then great. I just want you to develop your own mastery, but more importantly, I want you to know when you feel comfortable with your preparation. Okay. And if you aren't sure of that, do more problems. Remember that the point that I would like you to get to is that you can do all of this without any references at all. So your quizzes online and your exams online and everything, it's all timed in such a way that if you don't know how to do it, or at least mostly how to do it, if you go and check your textbook for like, okay, here's how to do it, and then you learn while the text or the quiz is going, you're going to run out of time. So same situation results if you go to Discord and ask somebody, hey, what's the answer to this problem? I don't know how to do it. If you're waiting for people to help guide you through it, it's going to take time. So the best way to be able to finish the quizzes on time and master all the material is to actually develop expertise so that you can do these problems. And if you get stuck on your own, send me an email and I will help you go through these problems. Because I have access to these too. I can do all of the problems because I'm the instructor. So I can guide you through anything that you have, or you can ask questions about these problems during this time. I realize that probably nobody has that many questions because the stuff that we've covered has been like, is it physical or chemical? Or is it a homogeneous mixture or a pure substance or whatever? Like, those are pretty straightforward. But as we go on, we're definitely going to get to stuff that you will have questions for. And these problems are good examples for that. Okay. Other questions? What else can I help with before we call it a day? Because that's all I have. So If we want to spend an hour doing examples or talking about stuff, like, that's totally fine. I'm here to do that. But if you are content and have no other questions, then that's it. We're all done. So I'll leave the chat open for a bit. Let me know if you have anything you want to bring up. So I'll just mute myself for a second. For percent error, do the sig figs for whatever your calculation dictates. So, for example, if you subtract those two things on the top and you get 4 sig figs, and then divide by a number with 2 sig figs, your answer would have 2 sig figs. And so on. So make sure that you are just following the rules for sig figs correctly based on what operations are present. Are the questions in the chapter quiz multiple choice? Are they short answer, etc.? They are all sorts of types. So if you've taken the orientation quiz, which I assume everybody has, you probably saw that there are multiple choice, true, false, type in a number, organize, click on the thing, that sort of thing. So I use all different types based on what I want to try and do. Some questions will ask you, arrange these things by this quality, from biggest to smallest. And so I use that type of problem where you have to put them in the right order. Other questions have you do a calculation. You type in the number, and if you come within a range of the correct answer, it's marked correct. Stuff like that. So there's no one specific type that shows up more than another. The one type that does not show up is anything that requires me to read it and interpret an answer, because Canvas will auto-grade it and it can't do that for me. So there aren't any short question quiz questions. There aren't any like write a sentence about why this happens. Those will be sort of wrapped up in multiple choice or check the statements that are true sort of questions instead. And the reason that I have to do that is just entirely limitations of Canvas. I could go through and read all of your answers, but it's extremely tedious on Canvas. So I just have it set up this way because I get a close enough approximation to your knowledge that it's fun. Sometimes the buoyancy simulator gets stuck. You know, I don't think I have ever used the buoyancy simulator. Is this the density simulation here? Oh, yeah, it requires flash, which is no longer a thing. Is this? Oh, yeah, this. I remember this. I have played with this. So I can make it really heavy, and then it's going to sink. Oh, no, it's not, because its volume is increasing for some reason. Oh, because I'm not increasing the density of the stuff. Okay. So I want to make a block. There we go. Thunk. Okay, you just play with this. Does it run better in other browsers? I don't actually know. I use Chrome for everything. Ooh, let's do a mystery block. Well, let's try and figure it out. Oh, thunk. Thunk. Ooh. Alright, what have we learned? So, you can then now go put these on the balance. Okay, this was this much. And you can figure out its volume by displacement. So you can figure out their density. And then you could arrange them by density. So these are the... I'm not actually going to do the calculations, but... Well, actually, let's see. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to do the calculations, but those are the most dense, and these are the least dense. What you can also do is you can just build a tower. That's what I like to do. Oh. I don't use Internet Explorer, so I can't tell you. I also don't use Edge. Oh, what will happen? It's just fun. Oh, I ruined it. Oh, everything is terrible. So, yeah. The simulations in the text are fun little things for learning. I just play with them. That's really all I do. So yeah, if it doesn't work, it might just be because of Flash. I know Flash is not supported, but you can force it anyway, I believe. I mean, I just forced it to work anyway, so. All right. If you have other questions, let me know. I'm just getting messaged by people left and right here. What do I want for dinner? What should I eat for dinner? Oh, right. I still have this open. I should probably close that. I was just checking to see how many students were here. People were leaving once I started talking about dinner. And it turns out, yes. Yes, they were. I don't actually have spaghetti, but I do have Swedish meatballs and pasta, so I could do that. Oh shit, no I can't. I have my I do something chicken based because my hamburger meat is in the freezer. I hate defrosting stuff in the microwave because it always cooks it. I have the worst microwave. It is tiny and old. I do have pizza left over. I might just eat that. Some of the problems use a 1 in division problems. Can you be more specific? Oh, I see. Okay. Whenever you see this entered, that is exactly 1. That is infinite sig figs. So if you have like 1 kilogram equals 2.204 pounds, the 1 written as just a 1 by itself is infinite sig figs. And a lot of conversions do that. Because what they are saying when they do that is they're, so if I do this, 1 kilogram, 2.204. So whenever you see that 1 by itself, it's always exact. And then this would be inexact. And so that number would have 4 sig figs. Okay. So whenever you see a 1 by itself, it's always infinite sig figs. That's a good question. That's not something that really comes up in a discussion very often, but is always implied. And then people say, oh, this conversion has 1 sig fig. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. This is just sort of how measurement works, because on your standard, you know where exactly 1 kilogram would be for weight, and your object will fall somewhere on that based on the markings that are there. But yeah, if you ever see a 1 by itself, that is always exact. Just that specific number, though. Something that people will try and do is that they will write, instead of this, they will do this to make the number of sig figs match, and then it's unambiguous. But the convention is that just writing 1 means that in exactly 1 kilogram, there are about... Oops. Roadhog fell over. Hold on. I have a Roadhog statue on my desk. He holds my stylus. The convention is that if you have just 1 single digit and that digit is 1, it's exact. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Last call for questions. I guess while I do that, I will get my little outro music here. We good? We good. All right. So I want to thank everybody for coming out to the lecture tonight. These lab lectures will be pretty informal. Next week's lab lecture will, quote unquote, will just be Q&A. So if you have questions about the content that we cover this week, we'll go over it then. If you have other questions, let me know, either by email or the Discord channel. The Discord channel link got updated. I posted a new link in the announcements. That update shouldn't expire. I'm sorry, that invite shouldn't expire. So you should be able to get in there and join the chat with everybody. You can always ask me questions there. You can at me, and I will answer those questions as soon as I can, because the sound will trigger and I'll look at it. Thanks for coming out to lecture. I will see you all tomorrow when we finish off chapter 1. Have a good night.